purpose of this video is just to help some of my beginning clarinet friends with some of the basics on our clarinets. So one of the things for basics on your clarinet, of course, is your fingers and where they go. So your left hand thumb, when we first start out, is just going to be on the thumb hole, of course, in the back. And then our left fingers are going to be on the holes on the front of your clarinet. Now, eventually, our left first finger is going to roll up to this key right here. And I say roll because we really don't want to pick the finger up and do this. That's not as good because once in a while, we might have a note in between if we are not too careful. So we just want to roll that finger up and hit that key. That's for the note A. It's not one of our very first 5 notes, but it's actually the 6th note that's introduced on the clarinet. So it comes up pretty quickly. Our clarinet first notes are really all in the left hand, the top hand on the clarinet. The bottom hand, the right hand, at first you can even just hold on to the thumb brace there instead of putting your thumb underneath it. If you are putting your thumb underneath that, you have to be careful that you're not putting your thumb too far underneath and bumping all kinds of stuff on the bottom, because you don't want to be bumping these side keys and you don't want to be covering up holes when you are not supposed to be covering those holes. So now we're going to talk about when you are supposed to cover holes and when you are not. And your lesson book has the answers for that. So if you're a beginning clarinetist and you haven't figured out these happy little diagrams called fingering charts in your book, if you haven't figured those out yet, the top part of the fingering chart, and I'll try to zoom it in a little bit closer, but you have a book hopefully in front of you anyway if you're watching this video. So number 1 on page 6, Time for Band, introduces the note E. And anything above the little line, any of the circles above that little line, represent the fingers on your left hand. Any of the circles below that little line represent the fingers on your right hand. So these fingering charts, I like to think of as the answer key. So when you look at that note E, which is on the bottom line of the music staff, and that note E is also an E on the piano, it's on the treble clef staff, that bottom line is the note E. So when I play the note E, the circle over here to the side, that means my thumb hole. So the hole in the back of the clarinet should be covered. That's why it's filled in. So the thumb should be covering its hole. And then the top circle is also filled in. So that means my first finger. So the thumb and the first finger should be covering their holes. That's the note E. So when they introduce the note E, those 2 circles are filled in. When they introduced the note D, which is below the bottom line of the music staff, just like it would be on the piano, the note D, I add a finger. So the circle, the thumb hole is colored in, and the top 2 circles are colored in. So that means the thumb is covering its hole, the top finger and the second finger are down because they're colored in on the fingering chart. So if I have the top line, the top hole colored in, it's the note E. The top 2 holes are colored in for the note D, and the note D is below the line. So here's E on the line, D is below the line. The note C is below the staff and has the line through it. The note C has the thumb hole covered and all 3 fingers on the left hand. Those circles are colored in. So that means that all 3 fingers on the left hand are down. 1, 2, 3. So here is E, D, C. I'm keeping that bottom lip tucked. My top teeth are on the mouthpiece. And if I forget those fingerings, they're right here on page 6 in the book. So the circles that are colored in mean that finger is pressing down. When it's 2 fingers pressing down, I have the 2 circles colored in. When it's all 3 fingers and the thumb on the left hand, that's what your fingering chart looks like. When I go to page 8 and they introduce new notes, the F and the G are introduced on page 8. The F only has the thumb circle colored in, and none of these other circles are colored in. So only my thumb is covering its hole and pressing down. On G, no circles are colored in. So on G, I'm not covering up any of the holes to play the note G on the second line of the music staff. So when they introduce those new notes, they show you what line that note is on or what space that note is on. F is in a space. And they show you which holes should be filled in, which fingers should be pressing down on their keys. All right, that's really important. When we get to that 6th note, I showed you that A key up here. That is on page 10. I know I'm covering a lot of notes right now. The first 5 notes are really important, and we can play the first 5 notes on page 8 and 9. When we get to page 10, we learn that 6th note with that A key, and that's what that looks like on the fingering chart. It's an added little spot above the circles. So that's what the A key looks like. And on your clarinet, I showed you, here's the A key. So we press that down to play the note A. So we first learn the note E, D, C. Then on page 8, we learn the F, which is just the thumb, and the G, which is no fingers. Then on page 10, we learned the A, which is in that second space. On page 11, the note B is introduced, and that's the first time that we use our right hand. And then I press down the middle finger on my right hand. Now that's the first 7 notes, and it's introduced right here. Whenever something new is introduced in the book, like here they talk about the key signature, they tell you a lot of information at the top of the page. And also whenever a new note is introduced, they show you where that note is on the music staff. That B is below the line that's below the staff. And they show you the new fingering too. So when our beginners start band, usually the trick to being a really good band student is learning to use those fingering charts and learning to use all the resources in your book. And if you learn all those terms, the time signature, the tie, the fingering charts, if you get good at that and go one step at a time. So if you're still working on the first 3 notes on page 6, then do that and get really good at those 3 notes. And if you're awesome at those 3 notes on page 6, then play them on page 7 too. And if you're good at them on page 6 and 7, then play them on page 8. And then you have to add the 4th and 5th note, the F and the G on page 8. When you're really comfortable playing the 4th note, F, and you can play F, E, D, C, like in the song Country Walk, F, F, E, D, C, C. If you can play that, then you add the G in number 21. So we play the exercises in order, adding the notes in order, and get good at all of those notes, one step at a time, which is what number 25 is called. one step at a time. I hope this video helps. And then you'll be able to play many notes on your clarinet.